Welcome back to week 3 of our weekly awareness on choices. Stay tuned as Scott talks about how even though we may seem to be at the bottom, we can always find our way back to the top again.
All right, so let's talk about this guy, Robert Downey Jr. You may know him as the Iron Man or Sherlock Holmes or Dr. Dolittle. What you may not know about Robert Downey Jr. is that he started down the wrong path when he was 6 or 7 years old. His dad introduced him to marijuana, and he said within just a couple of years, he was addicted to marijuana. And a few years later than that, he was addicted to much, much harder, stronger drugs. The lie that people tell us that this drug won't lead to this drug, won't lead to that drug is absolutely not true. I can tell you this, if I make the first bad choice, it's so much easier for me to make the next bad one. And if the first bad choice is vaping or marijuana or alcohol or whatever it is, the opportunity for me to make another bad choice and take another direction that's not going to be good for me is very much so increased, right? Remember that from Robert Downey Jr. So check this out. He hit an all-time low. I remember watching his story unfold as a kid going, Robert Downey Jr. is going to die, because he was always in the news. It was always some horrific story. And he seemed like he could never get his life together. Lucky for him, there was a judge who poured into him and said, Robert Downey Jr., you're not going to make it if you don't commit to getting help, if you don't commit to getting off these drugs. It saved his life because he did commit. And here's a quote from Robert Downey Jr. He said, committing to quitting these bad things was one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing he'd ever done. Did it work for him? Yes, it did. He's one of the most popular actors in Hollywood to this day. So I want you to look at this. Here's a young picture of Robert Downey Jr. Imagine the dreams and the aspirations he has as a young person. I don't think ending up like this in a jumpsuit, incarcerated, fighting for his life because of his addictions was on the radar. I don't think that's where he wanted to be. And I believe if he was here today, he would tell us, guys, you don't want to make the same bad choices I made. But here, you see him come back. So I want you to get another story out of Robert Downey Jr. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how far down the bad path you go, you can come back, but you have to commit. Learn that from Robert Downey Jr. Okay, guys, so if you've sat through any of my presentations in the past couple of years, you've seen this picture before, you've seen this slide before, but I want to talk about it a little differently today. So we look at her at the very beginning, and I believe there she thought she was on top of the world. She's in control, she knows what she's doing. I'll bet you if we asked her, hey, I'll assume in the next year you'll be in one of these other places, she would have said, there's no way. I think these pictures take place over the course of maybe 3 or 4 years. Happened pretty quickly if you think about it. But at some point, what she was doing wasn't working, so she had to take more or add other things to it. And that's how you get to a place where you thought you would never end up. About the time you figure out that, hey, I didn't intend to be here, you're so deep into this vortex, into this tornado, that it's so incredibly hard to get out of. What happens here is we lose hope. We lose that hope. We lose the ability of going, you know, I need to step back from this because this is not working. This is making it worse. What happens is we're so consumed by this thing, we oftentimes can't see it. Look at these pictures. I assure you, if she could have stopped, she would have, but she couldn't. She lost hope. She didn't know where to go to get help. She didn't know how to ask for help. And that's what I hope you get out of this right now. I hope you understand that you need to respect yourself. Don't let this happen to you. Know where to go to get help. Know how to ask for it. If something's going on inside, know that. Know, I've got to dig deep. I've got to find that help and not go to a substance because, again, a substance isn't going to make it better. It's going to make it worse. Love yourself, respect yourself, and don't fall for these lies. We'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, does anybody recognize who this is? It's Tiger Woods. And I hate to show him to you like this, but there's some great lessons here. he's obviously not on top of his game here. He's having a bad day. There are bad things happening. You know, this is the culmination of bad choices and bad consequences catching up. I can assure you, when Tiger went down a road that led him here, he never started off thinking, I'm going to end up like this. I assure you that whatever substance it was he took, he never thought that it would get him to a place where he would take more quantities or different combinations or whatever it is that would lead him to this place. So you need to see that. And then the next thing you need to look at is this quote from a close friend of his who sees him in this condition and understands Tiger needs help. Tiger, you need help, and he's there to help him. Well, look at this quote from another one of his friends who's referencing this quote here and saying that this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Tiger's good, he's okay. I don't think there's malice in either one of these guys' hearts. They both genuinely, I believe, love Tiger, but one of them is seeing through the fog and saying, you know, Tiger, you need help. Sometimes, guys, we need to listen to those friends who are telling us, you need help. What's going on in your world? And if you're on the other side of that, if someone's coming to you and saying, hey, you don't seem the same, what's going on with you? Maybe that's an olive branch that you need to grab a hold of and find out, where can I get help? Who can I talk to? Who can I trust? It's a hard conversation either way. Either you're the guy offering help or you're the guy who's on the receiving end. It's a hard conversation. I get that. But in the world we live in right now, it's so incredibly important that you know who are your true friends and understand that the pressures of this world are building. Every day it seems like the pressures get harder and stronger. It's so important to know good choices from bad choices. And again, substances are not the answer to fixing a problem. This is a great example of substances did not fix the problem. Substances made the problem worse. Thank goodness for Tiger, he had a friend who said, man, I'm here with you and you need help and let's go do it. So I want you to remember this is a pretty powerful part of the story. Okay, so here we are again talking about Tiger Woods. Look at the pictures of Tiger here. A complete 180 from where we just saw him, right? This is Tiger at the Masters last year. What a transformation. It took a long time for him to get there, but man, is he ever here. Look at his eyes, look at his face, look at that clear determination of winning that game. You know, it was really fun to watch the Masters last year and watch Tiger's focus and dedication to being the best he could be. Because if you remember, he hadn't won a game in forever. It took him forever to come back. Did he come back? Yes, absolutely. He won the Masters. But I want you to see the dedication. Imagine playing against Tiger with that kind of focus. It's a pretty amazing story. And what I'm trying to show you here is that you can come back from the bottom. But it takes dedication, it takes digging deep, it takes focus to get there. And it also takes good friends. But something else it takes you recognizing in yourself that I've got to get help, I've got to do this thing. And you can come back. It's a very powerful story. Look at the picture up here. Here's Tiger in the old days when he first started golfing. And then you see the next picture of where he's ended up. Guys, what I want you to understand here is you can come back, but you got to dig deep. And hopefully you don't take the wrong path to begin with, but know this, even if you do, if you dig in, you can come back like Tiger.
Thank you for being with us. We hope you learned a lot about coming back strong from Tiger Woods and Robert Downey Jr. We look forward to seeing you next week as we close out our weekly awareness series on choices.